Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jen Morgan, and the more and more we hear about the Obi-Wan Kenobi series coming to Disney Plus in a couple months, the more I have concerns about it. Pretty much every image, trailer, interview, everything that we hear about the show drives up my concern for it. No less than the fact that Disney's making the show, as they haven't made a whole lot of good stuff, in my opinion, the last few years. So just statistically, it's not likely going to be good. And we also have another interview that really solidifies that concern for me with this show. A lot of my concerns come with the characters that they're taking from other eras of Star Wars, particularly Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. And the director of the Kenobi series, Deborah Chow, has this interview where she talks about how she portrays Darth Vader in the show. And as one of the most iconic characters in all of cinema, I'm very concerned to see what Disney specifically will do with this character, how they will bastardize him, just like they bastardized Luke Skywalker and so many others. But let's get into this interview with Deborah Chow coming from Bounding Comics. Breaks it down very well for us. Obi-Wan Kenobi director Deborah Chow reveals that Darth Vader won't be quite as fully formed as the Vader shown in A New Hope. And that's not how it worked. No, pretty much on the dark side, he was killing motherfuckers day one. He was just about as fully formed after Revenge of the Sith as he was in A New Hope. That was a whole deal with his character, is that he was pretty stagnant between the two movies, that he didn't really grow or evolve all that much. You see that from the third-party stuff, and that was an important piece of it, because he was so dead inside that he couldn't evolve, that he was incapable of it without the positivity in his life that his son would later provide to him again at the end of Return of the Jedi. And so this is just a misunderstanding of the character. He doesn't need to evolve. He doesn't need to be at a lesser point. Obi-Wan Kenobi, I can see an argument for him not being as fully formed, because that's a sharp transition from the end of Revenge of the Sith to the beginning of A New Hope. There is a transition there that the show, with good writers, could play off of in a very good way, but Darth Vader should not undergo such a transition because he's just evil now. But I just don't like to hear creatives like this in charge of big franchises showing such fundamental misunderstanding of the characters that they've been entrusted with. Alongside making radical changes to Kenobi, it also appears that Lucasfilm will be making changes to Darth Vader as well. And yeah, there's a lot of things that they're changing with Obi-Wan Kenobi that I don't like. He should not be leaving that planet. Not whatsoever. He should never leave Tatooine until the events of A New Hope. But that's not as exciting. Well, then do a flashback show. There's a lot of other options besides breaking canon. Disney loves to break canon. It's probably like in the writer's room. It's like, all right, guys, how are we going to break canon this day? It's like how they start all their shows, it feels like. But in a recent interview with Entertainment Weekly, Obi-Wan Kenobi director Deborah Chow discussed Darth Vader, revealing the character won't be quite as fully formed as Darth Vader fans were introduced to in the original Star Wars film. Again, he was already fully formed pretty early on. You can see that from the third-party material, even the material that Disney has released during that era. Darth Vader doesn't need to change all that much between the movies, and that's kind of important. However, before she provided some details about Darth Vader will appear in the show, she discussed why she decided to include the characters in the series in the first place. I mean, that was obvious. As soon as we knew that there was a Kenobi series, we knew Vader was going to be in it, and that concerned a lot of fans because it was very much implied. It wasn't explicit, but we all knew it was true type deal where Obi-Wan and Vader did not interact with each other since Mustafar before the events of A New Hope. So I was really hoping it would be like a dream sequence, flashbacks, maybe two parallel stories that almost touch a few times, but they never directly interact. Like, I knew Vader was going to have to be in it. I probably would have made the same choice to include him, but there had to be ways of doing it that didn't have them meet. But that's obviously going to happen because there's going to be a rematch of the century. Fucking retarded. So yeah, we kind of knew from day one that he was going to be in it. Chow stated, honestly, for me, the starting place was that I really wanted to do something that was character-based and character-driven because it is the benefit of a limited series that you have some more time to sort out and tell a real character story. And that's true. This should be a character study above an action show. This should be primarily about Obi-Wan on Tatooine, mostly alone, dealing with his failure, just reminiscing on all the things that he did wrong and evolving into Alec Guinness's version of Obi-Wan Kenobi. That would be very story-driven. Really light on action, but very story-driven. So yeah, she's starting out with some good comment, but she's got to probably twist it in a way that isn't exactly what we'd want to see. From what I've wanted from the show, I kind of wanted an Obi-Wan story and a Vader story that run parallel, don't really interact that much, and Obi-Wan is mostly meditating, maybe with Qui-Gon because we knew he was interacting with Obi-Wan during this time, and it was majority flashbacks to the Clone Wars, so we can get some live-action Clone War stuff, and like the biggest moments of failure where he should have seen Anakin's turn to the dark side. Like, I should have seen it in this memory, I should have seen it in this memory, and kind of build a narrative around the Clone Wars, and just using Kenobi in Tatooine as a vehicle to tell that story. I think that would have been a lot better way of doing it than what they're going for, but, you know. And as for me, the starting place of the character is you just want to start and you look at who has been important to him in his life, and it's quite hard to avoid Anakin/Vader in that scenario, especially coming out of Revenge of the Sith. So it's like, I want to do character, but I don't want to worry about plot. It's just hard. It's hard to stay with canon. So let's just throw it out the window to make our own characters, because I like characters. That's just an asinine approach. I do like Deborah Chow's directing. She had some of the best episodes of The Mandalorian, but still, it's concerning that she's saying it like this. So it really came out of an evolution of the character for me. It wasn't just sort of bring him back. It was really who means something and where are we at this point in the timeline with Vader. And you're destroying these characters. By having this character study that you want, Deborah Chow, you are destroying the pre-established canon, which destroys the pre-established character. Canon and character are very much intertwined, because without character, you lose a lot of stakes, you lose a lot of backstory with characters, and they just start to mean less and less. It's kind of what it is with Star Trek, with them changing so much of the past and throwing out canon. James T. Kirk is devalued. Now, I can separate the garbage that they're doing currently with the original Star Trek show, but some people can't, because they are destroying the canon and destroying James T. character as a character. So by doing this, you're doing the same thing to your most important characters. Chow previously explained why she was including Vader in a teaser promo for the series on Disney Plus, saying we couldn't tell the story of Obi-Wan without addressing Anakin over Vader. And I do understand that. I want to make that very clear. I do understand that it is important to have those characters, but you could have mirror journeys and like a reverse evolution between the two of them without them ever interacting. And maybe if you need a lightsaber battle with them in the present fighting, do it in like a spiritual plane where they both aren't even sure if it was real, but they were like on a Force acid trip and they fought each other in this trip. You could do something like that to get your rematch of the century, but it be 100% spirit based rather than physical based. That'd be the only way that I'd be okay with a rematch. Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy also told Entertainment Weekly earlier this month that the decision to include Vader in the series was talked about constantly. Of course, she doesn't care about canon. She cares less about canon than every other person. She's like, what can I do? How can I bastardize canon to destroy more characters and prop up my political agenda? She straight up says it in an award ceremony she went to with George Lucas a few weeks ago. George Lucas is like, yeah, it's great to be creative. I love the creative process. She's like, I love being like woke and diverse, and I love politics. Not what you want to hear from someone in charge of a franchise. The debate over whether we should or not carry on for quite some time. Everyone within our creative story had strong opinions, and all our fans have strong opinions. Yeah, and the ones who are actually fans of the prequels and of the original trilogy, not the sequels, because the sequel fans don't give a shit about canon or characters or anything like that. Those true fans of the original stuff, they don't want anything that you're selling. So when you realize that you're under the level of scrutiny, certainly a story point like that is getting scrutinized at a high level. We talked about it constantly. All right, so she just has some asinine comments. Chow went on, what kind of Vader will we see in the show? I don't want to see him in... Yeah, so she's just going down more into the backstory of Anakin becoming Vader and the transition that was made and stuff like that. So I just don't think Vader should be undergoing really any sort of transition just because of the way his character is made. He died, in a sense. His soul died, and his ability to evolve, good or worse, is pretty much snuffed out. So by showing him, I imagine it's going to not be just like a I'm not as evil Vader that we're going to see here. It's going to be an inexperienced Vader. So he'll be making mistakes. He'll have, probably the female Inquisitor will probably be best him in a scenario, and it'll be like stuff like that where he's just like unsure of himself. And that's not what I want to see from Vader. I don't want to see a Vader that isn't quite as fully formed, because that devalues the character. That takes away a lot of the mystique, and that just doesn't make him as intimidating as he should be by making him not quite as fully formed and intimidating by whatever scenario he's in. So this concerns me far more than a lot of the other stuff we've seen coming out of the Kenobi series. Really the most concerning that I've seen coming out of it so far is this interview and these statements. But that's might just be me. Other fans may disagree. And that's anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.